Joining us now is Ren Clayton at Ren_Clayton on Twitter. You can go give him a follow, a sports anchor and reporter for the CBS affiliate there in Minneapolis. Ren, good morning to you, my man. Let's start. What's the bigger story right now in Minneapolis? Is it what the Vikings are going to do in the draft or what the Timberwolves did in game one of their series?
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's hard to beat the Vikings. They kind of rule the day no matter what, no matter the offseason. But certainly the Timberwolves created a buzz and have been creating a buzz throughout this run this year and after that big win, that 25-point win a couple of days ago. But yes, Thursday is much anticipated, especially since it's presumed a quarterback will be taken by the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, the crazy thing about that, Ren, is Ant Edwards has this massive game. He's going at it with KD. They get a big convincing win against Phoenix. And I felt like it was almost a bigger deal that Justin Jefferson was in the building sitting courtside because he's been skipping the voluntary workouts and trying to get this massive contract extension. What do you think is – let's start with the Vikings then. If they're the biggest story in Minnesota despite what Ant Edwards and company are doing, what do you think the Vikings are going to do? They seem like the most obvious trade-up team for a quarterback. Is that what you think is going to happen?
Yes, I think you have to imagine that a trade-up is in the works. When they traded for that 23rd overall pick with Houston last month, that to me and to a lot of people, the indicators are that they'll try to bundle that 11, that 23, and climb higher. Now, that's not to say that they necessarily will be successful in doing that. There's a couple teams at 4, 5, 6 that could throw some curveballs. There's the Cardinals, the Giants could be someone that could resist. And also, they're gonna have to give up a lot. And Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the Vikings GM, is very prudent when giving. I think he takes a hard stand when he has a limit that he's willing to give in his mind. And so I don't know if they'll be able to get that high. I think that is the plan right now, and I think that's a realistic scenario and plan A for them to try to trade up to 4, 5, 6, 7 from that 11 spot. But I do think that there is a possibility they just stay at 11, and there will be a quarterback there. I think we can all agree on that. It's just a matter of who's left at that point of who the Vikings might want.
Well, what's the reaction there if it ends up being a trade-up to go get J.J. McCarthy? Is that met with applause or boos?
I think it makes the most sense. McCarthy, to me, makes the most sense for what I think Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah would want, if they can get that high. If they can't, then the other guy is probably Bo Nix. Personally, I like Michael Penix, but he's kind of been rising and falling. And maybe he might have kind of fallen his draft stock right now. I don't know if he's projected to go that high, but yes, I think J.J. McCarthy. They like the intangibles certainly. They like the winning that he's done. We also have the national championship game. I think the biggest thing you have to remember is that Kevin O'Connell, he considers himself, and I think a lot of people consider him to be, to use a cliche, a quarterback whisperer. We saw what he did with Josh Dobbs last year when he was traded and got in the game without ever practically having looked at the playbook. And Kevin O'Connell basically just talked to him through the mic until it shut off before each play and told him what to do, and to great success for at least a couple games until it didn't succeed. Kevin O'Connell thinks that he can, with the right canvas, he can create a good or great quarterback. And I think that's the mission here. And Kevin O'Connell has said as much. He's alluded to the fact that they're going to draft a quarterback. It's just a matter of who. And to me, J.J. McCarthy from Michigan makes the most sense.
Yeah, Ren, I was in Minneapolis just about a year and a half ago, and I it's coming from Portland, I'm floored. I see a beautiful, beautiful football stadium downtown, baseball stadium down the road, Target Center's right there. It's a perfect sports scene, and it's a great setup. I understand the Vikings and it's football, so it's like the number one sport for everybody in every city. I'm curious, kind of a two-parter for you. The Alex Rodriguez sale didn't go through, and so that gets pulled. I'm curious how fans reacted to that. And what does it take, you think, for Ant Edwards and the Timberwolves to not beat the Vikings in relevance, but to kind of rival it and get people just almost as excited about what they're doing and what they're building as they do for any given Sunday during the regular season for Vikings football? They've been a bad organization for the most part, but now they seem fun. They've got a dude. What does it take for that organization?
To start with your first part of your question, the Mark Lowry A-Rod scenario and saga is one that has been going on for a while now, and will probably go on for maybe more than a year to come. Everything is pointing toward arbitration to figure out this deal. Yes, Glenn Taylor said no, it's not going to happen, but A-Rod and Lowry think they have a case, and so it's going to go to arbitration to see. It's a complicated situation. Money not being met, deadlines not being met. It's a kind of convoluted situation, and I think Glenn Taylor is at the point now where he doesn't feel like he has to do anything. He has all the money he wants. He doesn't want their money at this point, and he's enjoying his time in the team. It was funny to watch the game a couple days ago. The two owner groups sit right across from each other. Glenn Taylor and his wife sit right next to Chris Finch and the Timberwolves bench. Then across the way with the other VIPs courtside is A-Rod, and they basically can just stare each other down if they choose to. They don't have to move their head. They're just looking right directly at each other. So that's an interesting thing. I don't know what people historically have been frustrated with Glenn Taylor because, as you said, the organization has struggled. There's been a lot of problems and drafting failures and things like that. The Kevin Garnett conflict with Glenn Taylor certainly doesn't help things. The fans love KG, and so they're not going to go opposite of his side. As for the excitement, I think it's been rising all year. The Timberwolves were the number one seed in the Western Conference for most of the year, or at least much of the year. It's been that three-team battle, as you know, with the Thunder and the Denver Nuggets, and ultimately the Timberwolves got the 3 seed. But yes, Anthony Edwards, as he might say some interesting things sometimes, he is beloved here. He's still super young. I think a lot of people agree, not just in Minnesota, not the homers in Minnesota, that he is going to be one of the faces of the NBA. He's got the charisma. He's got the playmaking. You saw the viral moment when he was trash-talking Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant was eating it up. They were both having a good time. Anthony Edwards says things after the game like, he became a fan of Kevin Durant for a stretch because Durant went red hot in that game as well. They both did. I think the excitement around Minneapolis and Minnesota, Minnesota is a basketball city as much as it is, a state of hockey or a Vikings town. People love basketball. There's so much talent coming out of here, both men's and women's. You know about Paige Beckers, about Chet Holmgren, about Jalen Suggs. There's a lot of talent here, so it's not just the Timberwolves. It's fans from the grassroots, if you want to call it that, and they're clinging on to this now because for the first time in 20 years, in the KG era in 2004, the Timberwolves have a really good chance to make a deep run. Now, the Timberwolves maybe have, if they're going to make the finals, they might have the toughest road to get there of any team that has a chance. They would probably have to go through Denver, then they probably have to go through the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then who knows who they play in the NBA Finals.
It's going to be a fun week, man. I'm jealous of you guys out there getting the NFL draft, seeing what the Vikings do if they move up, or you mentioned maybe standing pat and seeing who's available at number 11. And the T-Wolves get off to a great start this weekend. I got some money on them to win the West, so I'm rooting hard for them. Ren Clayton at Ren_Clayton, CBS affiliate there in Minneapolis. Thanks for the time out here in Portland, man. Enjoy this week and enjoy this playoff run. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we will. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Ren Clayton talking about the Vikings potentially moving up. If I were them, I would stay at 11 and draft Michael Penix Jr., but that's my 2 cents.
You take Penix at 11?
I would take Penix at 11. You know how I feel about that guy.
You might be able to get him at 23 if you don't move.
You might be able to. There's always the fear that somebody else moves in and tries to make a play there. Look, football's football. It's always going to be king. That's going to be the biggest story. It's round 1. It'd be interesting if this was like second round or conference finals.
Sure.
Would you be outweighing one or the other? Because I do think the Timberwolves have a legit shot at going on a run.
The reputation does not do them a lot of service there with Glenn Taylor as the owner, and everybody got excited when it was Lowry and A-Rod.
Yeah.
Interesting note about that. They're on payment plans, which I think is never a great sign when you're talking about a money standpoint. They couldn't come up with the payment by the deadline, but they had made payments a little past previous deadlines. I think Taylor had realized the valuation of the organization had risen significantly from what he had agreed to sell to A-Rod, and so they're late on the last payment. It's his way to back out. I didn't think that twosome going into it would make him look better, but they had a thing where a report came out that they think they're spending too much money and that if they become owners, they're going to strip it down and not have to spend as much on payroll. And I'm like,
the worst kind of owner.
If you're making Glenn Taylor look like Mr. Moneybags, given what his history is, I don't think that's an encouraging sign. So I think it takes like a West Finals, maybe pushing to Denver to 7 with Ant having a great playoff performance. You're never going to beat Minnesota Vikings football. You're never going to beat the relevance of it. But if you want to contend in that second sphere, be ahead of the Twinkies and be something people care about, get to the second round, beat KD, and push Denver. Don't get waxed by Denver in 4 or 5. Push that in a strong 6-7 game series. You're bringing all of that stuff back unless somebody asks for a trade, and then see where you go from there. So it's just the whole landscape right now. And I've been to Minneapolis. Passionate sports city. Awesome what they have set up for themselves, and I cannot wait to see what the Vikings are going to do because they're one of the trendy hot picks to move up into that top 5.
Seems like a great destination for a rookie quarterback as well. Of all the teams you could pick, Minnesota's probably the best of those that are drafting a guy early, so we'll see what they end up doing on draft night.